When the BMW F650 first reached dealers' showrooms in the spring of 1994, it felt like a bit of an oddity. A BMW, but not quite like any BMW before it. It was meant to be the bike that brought new riders into the fold, and for a while, it worked. By May 1995, BMW reported that more than 18,500 Funduros had already been built, and over 4,300 had been sold in Germany alone. That made it the fourth best-selling motorcycle in the entire country. It was a BMW single, assembled in Italy by Aprilia, powered by Rotax in Austria, and bought, in surprising numbers, by people who'd never owned a BMW before. This part of the story follows the Funduro through its life cycle. The updates, the variants, the markets it tried and sometimes failed to enter, and how ultimately time ran out for the original F650. The production Funduro, launched in 1994, was close to the Cologne show prototype, but not identical. The finished bike produced 48 horsepower, ran on a pair of Mikuni carburetors, and weighed close to 190 kilos wet, depending on market equipment. It was friendly, flexible, and unusually smooth for a single, thanks largely to two Rotax designed features: the gear-driven balancer shaft and a twin-spark cylinder head. Reviewers at the time all said roughly the same thing. It was surprisingly refined, nicely put together, and easy to ride. And then the caveats: it's heavy for a single, the suspension is soft at the front, and it's pricier than the Japanese. But the Funduro wasn't built to impress hardened riders. It was built to make BMW approachable to young riders, new riders, and returning riders who found the big R series models too large or too serious. And in that mission, it succeeded. It brought thousands of riders into the Bavarian brand. One of the Funduro's strengths was how easily BMW could adapt it to different licensing laws. In Germany, Austria, and Switzerland, as many as 50 to 70% of early Funduros were sold in a 25 kilowatt form, roughly 34 horsepower. These were official, factory homologated versions designed to meet strict power limits for younger riders. The restrictions were simple, but they allowed BMW to sell a mid-capacity single to riders who would otherwise have been restricted to 125s or very mild 250s. In the UK, things were slightly different. Restricted Funduros were almost always dealer-fitted rather than factory-built. Estimates suggest that 10 to 15% of Funduros sold new in Britain left the showroom at the 33 horsepower limit. This flexibility, full power or trimmed, made the Funduro feel modular, a bike BMW could tailor to whatever a local market demanded. The most striking example of that flexibility came in 1995, when BMW made a move nobody expected. On the 3rd of May 1995, BMW AG and the Indian Hero Group signed an agreement in Munich to begin CKD assembly of the F650, CKD meaning completely knocked down. BMW would ship the Funduro in kit form to India. Hero would assemble it locally, and the finished bikes would wear the full BMW roundel exactly like the European models. Production was scheduled to begin that autumn. The goals were ambitious: 800 bikes in 1995 and 1,000 a year after that. For BMW, this was partly a way into a huge emerging market, but it was also a technical experiment. The agreement explicitly stated that BMW wanted to explore using more Indian-manufactured components in future production, and that, if they met BMW standards, some of those components could eventually be used in European market motorcycles. In practice, India's sales were modest. The Funduro was too expensive for most of the market and too unfamiliar in shape and purpose. But historically, the program is important. It represents the first time BMW motorcycles were assembled in India, long before the modern BMW-TVS partnerships of today. In 1996, the Funduro received its first meaningful refresh. BMW didn't advertise it heavily, but the improvements were real. A changed fairing design. Front indicators moved from the fairing to stalks like the rear indicators. The water temperature gauge was replaced by an analogue clock. A flick-up side stand was replaced by a side stand with an ignition cutout switch. None of these transformed the bike, but they smoothed out rough spots and made the Funduro feel more mature. One significant running change happened inside the drivetrain. Early Funduros used a circlip to retain the front countershaft sprocket, a simpler design, but one that could lead to wear and failure. Later engines, in a running change mechanics strongly applauded, switched to the far more robust nut and lock washer system. If you compare a 1994 Funduro with one from 1999 or 2000, you'll find the later machine is calmer, a little more settled and more predictable. Still friendly, still simple, but more fully developed. The biggest shift in the model family came in 1997, when BMW recognised there was space for a more road-focused version of the Funduro. Enter the F650 Strada, the F650 ST. The key differences are well established. The Strada swapped the Funduro's 19-inch front wheel for an 18-inch one. It used shorter travel suspension front and rear, giving it a lower ride height for road use. Instruments on the Strada were black-faced compared to white-faced on the Funduro. Its handlebars were narrower, lower and unbraced, offering a more compact and urban steering feel. Underneath all this, the two bikes are mechanically identical. Same engine, same frame, same carburetors, same brakes, same transmission. But the ergonomics and geometry give the Strada a very different personality. It's calmer on tarmac, easier to paddle in a car park, and more predictable in city traffic. Reviewers liked it. It made good sense for commuters and shorter riders. But the Funduro still outsold it by a comfortable margin. People enjoyed the dual sport look, even if the closest they got to a trail was a gravel lay-by. By the year 2000, the Funduro had reached the end of its life. Emissions regulations were tightening. Fuel injection was becoming essential, and BMW, after years of Italian assembly, decided to bring production home to Berlin. The successor, the F650 GS, launched in 2000, was designed to meet all of those new pressures. Fuel injected, ABS ready, designed with rudimentary onboard diagnostic capability and built entirely in Germany. It used the same 652cc Rotax core, but almost everything around it had been redesigned. The original Funduro had done its job during its 51,000 bike production run. It brought thousands of new riders into the BMW family, and it proved that BMW could innovate, collaborate and outsource without compromising identity. Most importantly, it helped BMW Motorrad more than double annual sales, from 35,000 bikes in 1993 to over 74,000 in 2000. Not bad for a bike the purists have never fully embraced. In part 4, we'll look at the Funduro and ST today. What to watch for if you're thinking of buying one. The problems, the myths, the bargains, and why a good one is still such a satisfying bike to own. For now though, that's the life cycle of the original classic F650, the bike BMW built to be un-BMW, and which quietly became one of the most influential machines they ever made.